and welcome to Odds on Champions League final on Saturday. Man City Inter Milan in Istanbul with Dani Fisichella and Alvaro Romeo to analyze with us this big game. Hello, Alvaro. Hello, Dani. I guess Dani's already nervous. And as a bonus track,
I'm here to provide my impartial opinion on the game. You know, just these things that I found in my house, and then
randomly,
randomly by searching. But to be fair, we need to say also I have a Manchester City shirt because I used to be a Manchester City when Mancini and Balotelli were there. I used to be a fan. So, but I found more Inter things in my
long time
house.
ago.
I love your pajama, your Manchester
yes,
City.
Yes,
it looks
like
beautiful.
It looks. Yes, this is like if you can see, this is more like it was like, you know, they were not as rich as they are now.
Exactly.
So they had another spot. They were more like club pajamas. It's very good.
Still with Etihad, and as a bonus track, we are also gonna give some input on West Ham Fiorentina conference final on Wednesday. So everything with Alvaro, with Dani, with you. Remember to leave your comments and your tips, and of course, press the like and subscribe. And now let's go on with the show. Well, we know that Dani is gonna support Inter, of course, but this is not about which team you are supporting on Saturday. It's about making money and giving good info, good tips for the final. And the first thing I want to take a look at is the full-time market, of course. And I want to ask Dani first if it's worth it to go, for instance, for a surprise, because everyone, I think, takes for granted that Man City are going to win, even the bookies, 1.5 Man City to win. This is really low odds. Inter Milan to win 7.8. Dani, would you touch the outright market with these odds?
I'm not going to touch anything that involves the outright market, and I'm not going to give any prediction today about the outright markets. But last night, I couldn't sleep. I cannot sleep since Inter qualified for the final. And I was thinking, has this ever been in the Champions League a final with such a clear favorite? And you will help me, Alvaro. I was going back to 2000, Real Madrid against Valencia. Real Madrid probably
not that one.
Probably
not. Definitely not.
Maybe 97 Borussia Dortmund Juventus being so favored, but really
Bayern Chelsea in Bayern ground.
But was it so favorite, Bayern? I mean, Inter is given 750 winners, so probably in the last 30 years this is the most disproportionate advantage to a team to another. So touching the full-time market is a big risk. Coming back to you, of course, this is a real big risk in terms of betting perspective, because it's just one game. Okay, so anything can happen. But to be fair, Manchester City have been the favorite to win the Champions League since the quarter-final draws were made. So if you bet on Manchester City, you should have bet on them much earlier rather than betting now, because there is no value in betting for Manchester City right now.
Exactly. Alvaro, would you touch it? Do you see also Man City this favorite? Because I agree totally with Dani that this is really a single team game. It looks like that. Not only for the bookies, but I think the popular opinion.
And my opinion is the popular opinion as well. Your one is the unpopular opinion. I think an Asian handicap, a good Asian handicap for Manchester City is my pick here. And I have this odd in my head since mid-May, really. I think the handicap in Manchester City is the best choice here. I think they are strongly favourites. They haven't lost for a long time now, 5th of February. They have still competed because they played the FA Cup final last Saturday. And there is a tactical breakdown that I will do very soon. And I will try to convince our audience, not to oblige, obviously, but to persuade them that betting on Manchester City is the right thing to do here.
Well, Dani, from the Inter point of view, there are some things, I guess, to be optimistic. One of them is how competitive is this team in the big games this season.
And the fact that they won 11 of the last 12, so they almost repicked, they found form when it mattered. You know, two months and a half ago, they were going nowhere. They were getting defeated 3 times in a row in Serie A. at home by Fiorentina, by Juventus and Monza without scoring. They were squandering a lot of chances, and the game against Benfica was looming, and they were looking a lot out of the Champions League in Serie A. At the right time, they found more confidence, they found the shooting boots, and out of a sudden, they found the form. One thing for sure is the Inter are well physically, and they will need to be well physically, because against this Manchester City side, you need not only 11 players that are running, are fit, and also are obviously very good when they got the ball. You need 16 players, because they're going to tire you out. They're going to move the ball a lot, and Inter will need everyone fit. In this case, yes, everyone is fit, apart from maybe Mkhitaryan, who's a doubt, of course, is a key battle in midfield. Even Skriniar is back available. He's not been playing for the last 4 months. He's going to leave for PSG. So that's obviously, it's a good thing for Inter. And Inter, of course, they go there with no pressure. Today, Di Marco in the press conference said, for Manchester City is an obsession. The Champions League for us is a dream. He used the same sentence that Mourinho used when they beat Barcelona in 2010. And I think it's not by coincidence that they did that. But it's true, Inter has got no pressure. So if they go there and they get beaten, it's still going to be a very good season for them. However, they need to play the game. It is a game that Inter cannot just surrender and think, we're going to camp, we're going to park the bus, we're going to defend, because that would be a suicide against this Manchester City side. They might lose by a couple of goals, but they will end up losing. So the key for Inter here is to make sure that they make the most of their good physical condition. And when they got the ball, they use it properly. Don't launch it straight away to the attackers. Try to tire Manchester City out. But of course, they will know they will have to suffer. I'm expecting spells of games, 20-minute spells, where Inter will be boxed in. And this is something that Inter will have to go through. They will have to know how to suffer. But obviously, the possession phase is so important for them if they want to stand a chance.
And talking about the pressure, Alvaro, how strong is the pressure for Man City to win the final after getting the Premier League and the FA Cup final? And also, they haven't played really under pressure in the Champions League this season. In the ties, I think they were only behind at the Bernabeu. They drew after some minutes with that goal scored by De Bruyne. But usually they are on the front foot, and they've been very comfortably in this Champions League.
Well, I think they had a bit of pressure at Leipzig. That game, after it, there were many questions about Erling Haaland's fitting in the team. So at that time there was a little bit of pressure, but then in the second leg, Erling Haaland scored 5 goals. And in my opinion, the game at Santiago Bernabeu had massive levels of pressure for both sides. And in fact, caution was one of the things that defined that game. But then the second leg at the Etihad, especially the first half of Manchester City against Real Madrid, is the best first half of football I have seen in the Champions League for years. I think that they put one of their best ever performances, and they destroyed Real Madrid. Then they won the FA Cup, not with such a finesse, maybe because they weren't playing at home as well, maybe because some players have been tired. Pep Guardiola has a big squad, but he's using 15, 16 players at best. But Manchester City is very strong mentally. This is something that has changed from the other Manchester Cities of Pep Guardiola. Whatever happens off the pitch doesn't affect them, because this season the Premier League has launched an investigation for an alleged breach of 100 rules, and the team hasn't been affected. If anything, they've been strengthened, because Pep Guardiola defended the team in press conference, and the team felt strong and robust after that. They have set the basis to win the next league. I think that they are going to be strong favorites to win the next Premier League, because I don't think that Arsenal is going to produce a campaign like this. Liverpool is going to be there, but I don't think they can reach the 90-95 points threshold. I mean, everything is very good for Manchester City now. And one of the things that make it different from some other Champions League editions as well is that this season Manchester City doesn't suffer with the opponent's counterattacks. Because they are playing with a different system, because Kyle Walker is really fast when it comes to stopping a team from counter-attacking, because John Stones is doing a double pivot with Rodri in midfield, and Manchester City has more of the control of the ball. And it's not only the new system, it's also the fact that the fullbacks, they rarely overlap the wingers, you never see Nathan Ake or Kyle Walker doing this with Bernardo and Jack Grealish, for example. Therefore, Manchester City never loses the shape, the composure, and then they are very fit because whenever there is a counter-attack for the opponent or they steal the ball, normally they win the duel. And for a player to win the duel, for anyone, you have to be fit, you have to be fast, you have to be reactive. So I think that Manchester City right now is the best possible version of Pep Guardiola's side. And I really like this Manchester City. It's less entertaining perhaps than the team that won the Premier League with 100 points in 2018, but it's more suited for European football. And then there is the element of Erling Haaland. He might score in the final, and him scoring is 167. I'm not backing that one particularly, but it's the space 5 or 8 yards away behind Erling Haaland, because if Manchester City looks for him and Haaland starts making the moves, trying to do the runs behind the defenders, then a space is opened up for players like Kevin De Bruyne and especially Ilkay Gundogan, a player who scored the brace the other day in the FA Cup final. So tactically, Manchester City has all the resources, all the tools, and they've got something that is very uncanny and very unusual in football. The midfielders, Gundogan and De Bruyne, score more goals than the attackers like Bernardo and Grealish. Therefore, I think that Inter, especially the midfielder, whoever plays there, Çalhanoğlu, Brozovic, they will have to be very worried of stopping Gundogan and Kevin De Bruyne. In fact, if I back any fringe player to score, it will be Gundogan this time. It pays 4.33 and the value is brilliant. But yeah, I want to see how much Inter sits back, because if they steal the ball, as Daniele says, and they try to play, let's not forget that the fullbacks, they are going to be very far away probably from the opponent's goal, especially Dumfries, who needs like a space to run. And I think that Inter at some point they will have to, press up front as well, Manchester City, and try to steal the ball up front, because otherwise it's going to be too difficult for them.
Well, Man City suffered and drew the 3 away games in the knockout stages. Dani, how can Inter harm Man City? We saw them playing completely different against Portuguese teams, against Porto, against Benfica, more not sitting back, but more defensive. Against Milan, they were much more aggressive when they played the first leg in Milan ground. What do you expect about Inter? How can they harm Man City?
Inter this season has showed that they can be defensive without necessarily parking the bus. They are compact, they're very experienced, they can defend, and they can also defend well by keeping possession, as they did against Benfica, especially in the first half. The 3 midfielders of Inter, and maybe with Mkhitaryan if he's fit enough, I think they are good enough to match the 3 midfielders of Manchester City. Barella this season has been fantastic. He's a very good season. He's very good season in both boxes. Çalhanoğlu in the deep lining midfielder role has been proving very good. And Brozovic is a proven, experienced midfielder that can really control the tempo. Of course, Inter midfielders will have to chase the game for a bit, and that's where physical condition come into account. Inter have got the advantage, or could have the advantage, that playing with a midfielder of 5, they could have one man over on the far side, on the blind side. Manchester City, historically this season, when they suffered against teams that play with a back 3 that can become a back 5, and they got the wing backs. If you think about the way they lost against Spurs, the way they lost against Brentford in the first game, these are both teams that play with a 3-5-2, and they can exploit those wide areas. But of course, you need to be very good in possession. You need to be very good to switch the play from one wing back to the other wing back to find the free man and the runs of Di Marco. Di Marco could have a go at running at Manchester City right-hand side behind Bernardo Silva. So could Denzel Dumfries behind Jack Grealish. But you have to have the ball, and you need to be calm and collected. And then, of course, there is a big question mark. Is he going to be Lukaku? Is he going to be Dzeko? Dzeko started every single game in the Champions League, but Lukaku is the informed player. He scored 7 since the mid-April and gave 3 assists. Naturally, Inter are more suited to play with Lukaku and Lautaro. And I think against Manchester City, naturally, Lukaku matching up to the physicality of Ruben Dias makes more sense, and being able to turn Ruben Dias and serve Lautaro, who could go on a 1-to-1 against a player like Akanji, might have his chances. But Inzaghi, we know, fancies Dzeko, because Dzeko can help stepping up into midfield and being almost an extra midfielder there. But of course, it will change the complexion of the game. Let's see. Inzaghi said he hasn't decided yet. I have the feeling Lukaku might start this one rather than play when the game has already started. But these are the ammunition of Inter. Look, Inter is a team that if you look at the Champions League, the way they qualify for this final, you can look at it both ways. It is the team has kept the most clean sheets, 8, but also is the team whose keeper, Onana, has made the most saves, 48. So it could go either way for them. You know, many times they've been saved by Onana. And Manchester City is, of course, the team that had more shots on goal this Champions League campaign. They average 16 attempts per game, 7.5 shots on target per game, also against Real Madrid, very high percentage of shots per game. So obviously Inter will know they'll have to suffer, and I think they go into this game with this mentality. Let's see, because of course it is an uphill task for them.
Well, yes, Alvaro?
Just answering your question, Edu, because your question for Dani, I got a different answer for it. I think that, number one, the counterattacks of Inter, I don't think that they are going to be particularly fruitful for them, because if there is a counterattack from Inter, Pep Guardiola is going to go leave it, because this season he's been trying to avoid counterattacks from happening. That's why, if Grealish or Bernardo lose the ball, there are 6 players just keeping the shape. Rodri, Stones, and 4 defenders. And 3 defenders, sorry, 5 plus the goalkeeper. So the counter-attacks don't happen so much. But there is an element that I want to point out because it's super important. In the Premier League, there is only one team that plays recognizably with 2 strikers. It's Tottenham, with Son and Harry Kane. Tottenham is the last team that beat Manchester City.
And I think that's the key. And I think this
is the key. Manchester City is not used to defending 2 strikers.
I totally agree
and
with you.
Checo, Lautaro and Lukaku. I think that this is opening up a totally new different dimension. But I want to see how much of the ball Inter has to be able to use in their advantage the fact that they've got 2 strikers, because the marking is different, and Akanji, Ake, and Diaz will look at each other, and if Pep Guardiola, I'm sure that he will work on this, but during the game, maybe they have some doubts, maybe some things are not automated, and maybe Lautaro and Lukaku can create a little bit of trouble to Manchester City defense.
And we have seen in the FA Cup final, when Manchester United, who by far were the worst side, I mean, Manchester City been much better, but when Manchester United had a go at them, when they introduced Garnacho and they played a little bit more direct, they did create a few chances. You know, they could have equalized, and often they found joy with that switch of play from one side to another. That's how they provoke the penalty. So obviously Manchester City has got their own vulnerabilities, perhaps at defending set pieces. But yeah, I'm absolutely with you, Alvaro. It depends how much of the ball Inter is going to have and how well they're going to use it.
You mentioned Lautaro. He just got married, a player with good strikes, and he's in a good one. So perhaps he's a key player. If we look at the goals market, you, Dani, don't want to touch the outright market. Alvaro already gave a couple of tips about the outright market. If we look at the goals, the bookies expect the goals over 2.5 goals, pays 1.8. Under 2.2, I guess, of course, having Man City and Haaland in the game, we should expect goals, Dani, or what do you think?
I would go for the over 2.5 goals. Actually, this is one of my picks, 182, because it's Manchester City, it's Haaland, it's De Bruyne, it's Grealish, it's Alvarez, which sometimes we tend to forget. It's a lot of players. But on the other hand, Inter have been scoring more goals, 100 goals scored this season for Inter. And in the last 10 games, you know, they score more. So obviously they got the confidence back up. So over 2.5 goals, that would be my pick. But if you have to go a little bit more deeper and try to dissect the game, I will go for the corners market. As I said, I'm not going to touch the full-time results. Manchester City Asian handicap corners -3, that pays 183, because I'm going back to my point before. There's going to be spells of 15, 20 minutes during the game when Manchester City are going to attack, and they're going to create chances, and Inter will have to defend them. And I think probably sometimes the back 3 will become a back 5. Chances of a cross, a deflection, it might go for a corner. So -3 for Manchester City corners, 183. On the other hand, you can go for over 9.5 corners in the game, 185, because I think Manchester City are going to take at least 6 or 7 corners. But also Inter, when they attack, Lukaku is a very good header of the ball. Lautaro perhaps even better. So they're going to cross with the wing backs. We saw Di Marco doing so many assists and so many crosses. So again, the chances of an over 9.5 corners for me are quite high, 185 on that.
I haven't said my favorite odds yet. And I don't want to be Anglo-centric because I think that Inter has the best squad in Italy by far. And I think that they've
better
been
than
really
Napoli. Better than Napoli.
Yes, definitely, 100%. For me, at least, Inter. But anyway, the thing is that Manchester City is the best team in Europe. They beat Real Madrid 4-0 the other day, and they are on course to win everything. My favorite one here is an Asian handicap minus 1.25 for Manchester City. I just wanted to say that. This is the one I strongly back, personally. If they win by 2, you win, and if they win by 1, you suffer half a lose, which is, not too bad at the end of the day.
2.05 is these odds. Man City really favorite. It's funny that it pays more the both teams to score market around 1.9, 1.95 than the over 2.5 goals. So the bookies expect goals, but on one side. On Man City side, any other odds that you want to flag? Any individual markets, perhaps, Dani, Alvaro?
As I said before, I mean, Lukaku to score is very good, 4.5, he's in a good run. If you put the ball in the box, and Inter has to try to do this because, penalties happen, red cards happen, Inter has to try this. Remember Arsenal-Barcelona in 2006? There was a red card to Lehmann, and Barcelona ended up winning the final, suffering, but, Arsenal will reduce to 10 men. Inter has to try to trigger these things as well. Lukaku to score 4.5. I wouldn't go for Haaland to score 167. I think the money is not that great and he hasn't been scoring lately. I think he can score, of course, but the money will be in Gundogan to score or Kevin De Bruyne to score because, as I said before, the midfielders of Manchester City score more goals than the wingers of Manchester City, which is very particular.
And I remember the game against Real Madrid in the first leg. Kevin De Bruyne, I think at least he had 4 shots on target in the first semi. So that could be another market. I mean, especially if Inter starts backing up a lot, they will try to shoot from distance. So Kevin De Bruyne to have over 2.5 shots on target or over 4.5 shots in total. A word on the referee, Marciniak, the UEFA, of course, has chosen the best one, the best referee that you got in Europe. And that could mean that hopefully he will manage this game a little bit better than Taylor as he did in the conference final. Because I think, look, coming back to that game against Roma, I don't think it's more about a lot about the incident himself, the penalty could have been, could not have been, but it's the cards situation that was mismanaged. And I think with Marciniak, this will not happen. I think he will be able to put a lead on the game. So I'm not expecting too many cards in these regards. Maybe the odd card for Inter, Barella, Brozovic often seem to pick up cards when things get heated. But I wouldn't go, for example, for an over 4.5 cards, perhaps an under 4.5 cards, considering the referee is very, very good.
I would be afraid on confronting Marciniak, that's for sure. It was some controversy whether he was going to be the referee in the final. Yes. Finally, we have another bold referee in this final. Hopefully, he is the best. Much luckier than Taylor.
One thing on Manchester City and Inter, do you know, and I'm sure you know because you are geeks like me, that they never met each other in a competitive match.
I was going to say that.
And I think that tells a lot. Because they've been going in 2 different directions. When Inter were at the top, 60s, 70s, 80s, Manchester City weren't. And then Manchester City started becoming a force, and Inter weren't. They were going downhill, and now they meet. That tells you how complex is European football these days.
Only 3 meetings in friendlies in the early 2010 and 2011, so they haven't played an official game, but here they are, Man City, Inter Milan. If you look at the history, Inter should be favorite. Of course, they won with Mourinho, the Champions League.
And another one. When Manchester City, and also another one for Alvaro. When Manchester City let Edin Dzeko go, would you ever thought he would have been in a Champions League final against them?
No, but I am a massive fan of Edin Dzeko.
Me too.
He's very close to play with Roma, another one.
He was almost close.
With Roma, he was good. And, the answer would be no, Dani. I didn't think that he will make it to another Champions League final, but I think he was brilliant for Manchester City. I mean, Manchester City with Pellegrini had Checo, Agüero, Balotelli, and Negredo. And that season, I think that they reached 125 goals or something like that. It was crazy. And Checo was an integral part of that.
And he was still very good when they let him go. I mean, it was still he was still at the peak. But that tells you what Manchester City has been in the last 8-9 years.
Well, and Italian football, I would say also. We've been expecting Italian teams to get into the finals in European football. And this season we have 3 teams in the final, because also on Wednesday we want to give some tips about the game we have in Prague. Fiorentina, West Ham Conference Cup final. Remember that last season was an Italian team, Roma, with Mourinho winning the final. Here is much more balanced. If we look at the outright market, West Ham is slightly favorites, 2.79. Fiorentina 2.98. West Ham with a really high budget, Dani, but they've been struggling the whole season in the Premier League, not in the conference. It looks like this team is way above the other teams. They won all the games in this competition except one draw against Ghent.
Yes, but I fancy Fiorentina here. And I fancy a high-scoring game. Fiorentina are a little bit of all-or-nothing team. 56% of all their games have been both to score. They like to play this 4-3 formation, committing a lot of play forward. And also, when they build the play from the back, they often leave the 2 central defenders against the 2 strikers. So it's always a 2-on-2 situation. Most of the times they get it right, but when they get it wrong, the other striker is clear on goal, and it happened many times. So I think this is a team, and this is a game that is going to be decided which team is going to be able to exploit other teams' mistakes, which is going to be a lot. Neither of these 2 teams have got great defenses, but Fiorentina is a side that everything goes their way. They can score 5 or 6. Look, I give you a bit of a lowdown on them. In Serie A, 3rd for shots, 1st for corners, 5th for possession. If you look in Conference League, they had 90 more attempts on goal than West Ham. You got 4 Fiorentina players in the top 3 of the Conference League for goals, Cabral and Jovic, and assist. Since February, Fiorentina only 2 games without scoring, 97 goals scored this season, only 3 less than Inter, and 24 more goals scored than West Ham. West Ham, on the other hand, have got a poor defense. This season has been disappointing domestically, 16 points less compared to last season, conceding more goals, score less goals despite investing on new strikers. I don't think that they come into the game. I think West Ham are going to be more set up to counter-attack, and Fiorentina are going to more set up to play. But even if Fiorentina goes 1-0 up, they will keep playing exactly the same way as they did in the Coppa Italia final against Inter, which they end up losing sometimes. So they maybe need to mature in the way they manage games. But for me, over 2.25 goals, 195, I think is an extremely good odds, because if there are only 2 goals, you lose half a stake. And both to score, 191. I think they're both vulnerable and both susceptible to mistakes. Sometimes Fiorentina makes mistakes with the line of the offside, or as I said, they leave that 2v2 situation. So they're going to be chances, they're going to be goals.
And Fiorentina, they are so good at scoring in this conference when they are playing away. They beat Basel, Lech Poznan, Sivasspor, Braga, Rigas, Hearts, scoring at least 3 goals, Alvaro.
Yes, they are the top scorers of the Conference League, and also the leaders in attempts on goal in the Conference League as well. So, I understand completely that Daniele will back over 2.25 goals. I'm going to keep it very similar. I will say both teams to score is a very good one as well, because I am aware of the danger of West Ham United. Of course, I think Fiorentina arrives in a good moment to this final. Yes. They've been attacking. They've been playing with bravado as well. And then the players are there. Cabral, 7 goals. Jovic, 6. And I think that these strikers, anytime they have a chance, they take a shot. That's why, for example, I'm going to back Luka Jovic to have 1 or more shots on target. That pays 165. I know that the return is not brilliant, but this is a very likely possibility, in my opinion, because West Ham United as well don't have defenders that stop you from shooting. The likes of Thilo Kehrer, for example, a defender that I don't rate a lot, run backwards, but they don't stop you from shooting many times. I think that Aaron Creswell doesn't close the left flank perfectly either. But on the other hand, there is another player in West Ham United that I bet that he will have one shot on target, because verticality is what has made his career. I'm talking about Jarrod Bowen. In my opinion, yes, Antonio has scored more goals in the Conference League, but I think that Jarrod Bowen, just entering the box from the right flank, normally he tends to finish off his own actions. So him to take a shot on target or more, 173, I like it. But as I said, both teams to score, I love it, 185. Daniele said 191. I think, well, the parameters are those.
Yeah, change it.
And one player to be shown a card is something that I'm going to back here as well, which will be Amrabat, Sofiane Amrabat, because in the Serie A, I think that he has been shown plenty of yellow cards. He's in the top 3 of yellow cards shown. And in West Ham United, there are 2 or 3 very technical players that actually take you on. I'm talking about Lucas Paquetá, Declan Rice, and Said Benrahma. These 3, when they have the ball, they can dribble past. And the way to dribble past, to stop somebody who wants to dribble past you, is to commit a fault. And Amrabat is very likely, or very prone, to receive yellows. So Amrabat to be shown a card from all the individual markets is one that I want to flag, because the money is really good, 3.0.
I like it. I like it because also the way Fiorentina plays, as we said before, they do commit play forward. If West Ham breaks, yes, Amrabat is likely to get card. I think when Fiorentina could suffer here is the physicality of West Ham. West Ham, I don't think they are technically better, but they're stronger. They're built stronger than perhaps the average Serie A side that they face. But one other one to look for is Nico Gonzalez. He had a great season, 14 goals, really finished on a high. This is a player that should have gone to the World Cup, got injured, otherwise he would have won the World Cup. But yeah, overall, Fiorentina, they finished the season strongly. Only 8 in Serie A, but don't look at the classification. I mean, with a little bit more of luck, they could have scored many more goals. And I tell you what, I mean, if on the night, they can score 2 or 3, 4 easily past you, but you need to be really careful. I mean, I'm expecting a completely opposite game from what we saw between Roma and Sevilla.
Well, you both expect goals in both ends. You agree on both teams to score. Hopefully we see a good final. These teams never met as well, so this is a new game for both teams, and the referee will be the Spaniard del Cerro Grande. This is the one who has to show yellow card to Amrabat. Well, you have all the tools now to bet in these 2 European finals. Let's see which one among them all of your tips is your preferred one, because you've said a lot. Dani, Alvaro, tell me yours, Alvaro.
My safe bet could be Manchester City to win at 90 minutes, 150.
And Dani is saying no with the head. Which one is yours, Dani?
Manchester City to win at 10 minutes, probably. I mean, no, I'm gonna yeah, just give them the trophy, and that's it. I think Fiorentina is gonna take more corners than West Ham. I'm gonna go for Asian handicap corners minus 0.5, 165 for Fiorentina.
Okay, and tell me your ACCA, Dani.
Fiorentina West Ham over 1.5 goals. Then my safe bet, which is Fiorentina Asian handicap corners minus 0.5, and Manchester City Inter over 0.5 goals in the first half. Total odds 316.
Sometimes people ask us, now the bookies, actually you can build a bet and create your mini ACCA in the same game. So if you are looking for building these ACCAs with only 2 games, you can do it with the build a bet feature that you have in the bookies. And Alvaro, yours?
I can see that Daniele doesn't want to jinx Inter. Okay, I respect it. I'm going to stay in the Champions League, though. I'm going to have a very different approach to Daniele's. Manchester City to win at 90 minutes and Manchester City to score over 1.5 goals. Altogether, 225. And if you want to top it up with the both teams to score in the Conference League, that will go up to 405.
Okay.
So we're not jinxing it. Here it is. He's the champions of Europe.
If someone can do it, Dani, this
fine.
is Pazza Inter, crazy Inter. This team is able to do the best and the worst. I was watching the other day the documentary about Ronaldo, and that was the worst Inter. And now perhaps they surprise the world and beat Man City. This is football. This is why we love this sport. Tell me that, guys, in the comment section, if you go for Inter, the big surprise, there is a lot of money with that, or you go conservative, you go with your head, as Alvaro is going, and you are backing Man City and Pep Guardiola. Well, Alvaro, Dani, thank you for your deep analysis of these games. Remember just to press the like, subscribe, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.